For more on the protests in China, let's welcome House Foreign Affairs Committee Ranking Member, Congressman Michael McCaul. Congressman, it's great to have you with us tonight. And we're watching what's happening in China very closely. All eyes on these protests that have been erupting. This has been a very brutal zero COVID policy, a very brutal kind of lockdown. It appears that the people in China are not only fed up with that, but also with a little bit of the rest of what's been going on there. Your thoughts on how this is going to play out, and if you think it's a threat to Xi Jinping's power?
Yeah, I think it does threaten Chairman Xi's power. He went before his Congress and became the imperial president. But in some respects, the emperor has no clothes here. We're seeing that he doesn't have the tight grip on his people like he talks about. And the fact is, the lockdowns are not working. And it's irritating his own people, and he's cracking down on his own people. And also, when I talk to health experts, I think they're going to go into another COVID threat because their vaccine doesn't work. They don't have any immunity to the virus in China. And you're going to be looking at wide-scale deaths in China due to COVID. And I think it's going to erode Chairman Xi's control and power over his own people, which he fears the most. And the White House response to this was so weak. What we need right now is strength to stand up for the people of China, just as we do this, right? We stand with the people of China over the dictator, Chairman Xi.
This is bizarre, too, because we've watched this pandemic for, almost 3 years now, the COVID-19 virus obviously originating in China. And so the fact that 3 years later, it's sort of undergoing this massive wave of infections, as you pointed out, the vaccine is not that effective. And so it's resorting to these brutal lockdowns, these very restrictive lockdowns. It's interesting to see. In some ways, it's almost ironic to see this happening at this point in time.
Right, and they're rebelling from this oppressive regime, and they're cracking down, taking people's phones, going through their phones to prosecute them, going through their social media that they try to control, and it just shows you how they operate in communist China. I think it's showing a failure on their governance as a communist dictator. And what's great is the people of China are now starting to realize this. When you look at mothers and children being thrown down on the ground during this lockdown and people being clubbed, lockdowns didn't work so well in the United States. They're not working well in China. And the fact is their vaccine is awful and it's not working. And Chairman Xi's going to pay the price.
To the point that you made about what we've endured here at home and what the White House's response has been to this, I want to play a soundbite from Antony Blinken, and you'll react on the other side.
When it comes to protests that we're seeing in China, protests that we're seeing for different reasons in Iran, in other places, our position is the same everywhere, which is that we support the right of people everywhere to peacefully protest, to make known their views, their concerns, and their frustrations.
And we'll talk about how this is playing out in China in a moment, but I see some irony in that statement as well, because I think to the policies that we implemented here in the United States, and when people protested against vaccine mandates or mask mandates, or during the COVID period when parents spoke up at school board meetings and were saying they weren't happy with some of the things that their kids were being taught in school, they were shut down and they were silenced in many ways.
Right, there are some similarities there, but we're a freedom-loving country. We're a democracy, and that is the antithesis of China and Iran. And if you see what's happening in Iran as well, I remember President Reagan, supporting through Voice of America the people of Russia over the Soviet Union. And we should be doing the same thing with the people of Iran and the people of China against these tyrannical governments that oppress their own people. We have a great opportunity here to promote, democracy and freedom. And I'm worried this administration doesn't quite get it. I couldn't see anything more fulfilling today, though, by the way, than to see the United States beat Iran in this soccer match. And Iran cracked down on their soccer players who didn't sing the national anthem. A very different form of government. And I hope the clock is ticking on their regime existence throughout the world.
I think a lot of people agree with you with respect to Iran and also Vladimir Putin in Russia and President Xi in China as well. The question would be, what would we do about it here in the United States if President Xi does decide to crack down in a harsh way, if, say, protests don't remain peaceful, or even if they do, and he just wants to squash it?
The best thing we can do both in Iran and China is promote communication from within the country. And we've been working, there are various agencies I've been working with to get communication like Starlink up and running in Iran, to get VPN in China. I had my Origins of COVID-19 report translated into Mandarin and went through the Chinese firewall. And it went viral in China once we got it in through Voice of America, like Reagan did with the Soviet Union. Because what, again, Xi fears the most are his own people, because when they wake up to what he's actually doing to them, they're not going to stand for it. So if we can support them through communications to help the resistance in both of these oppressive dictatorships, that's a force for democracy and freedom, and that's what the United States should be standing behind. And then democracy and freedom prevail, and we win.
That's an excellent point. Thank you so much for making it. Congressman Michael McCaul, great to see you tonight.
Thank you.